Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I am going to be wrapping up the books that I read in June and July. And sorry if this is weird at all. I got my new bed in my room. I mentioned this in my booktubeathon vlog if you guys have seen that. But I got my bed delivered and it's taking up quite a bit of space in the room, which I'm happy with the bed. It's just the filming situation is way different and my lighting is weird because I don't have a desk anymore, and where my lamps are, they usually aren't really facing towards me. Like I have one off camera that way and then the other one is usually here, but I actually moved that lamp and it's on my bed plugged in facing me to give me a little bit more light, because I noticed in my previous video where I was sitting here it was dark because there's no really good lighting and my window was also that way, so it just wasn't really lighting up well. I'm still getting used to it, so hopefully this is okay. It looked okay in a thumbnail, so I'm not gonna change anything, but hopefully there isn't a shadow from the camera on my face because the lamp is like right behind the camera. I'm hoping not, but if it is, I'm probably just gonna leave it anyway, because yeah, I'm kind of rewarding myself by filming this video. I want to play The Sims, and I know I need to get these videos done because I'm working for the next 2 weeks straight and I'm not really going to have a whole lot of time to film. So I'm going to do this, and then hopefully I still have enough time after I film these 2 videos to play The Sims before heading to bed. And yeah, now that I have, I think, rambled on enough, let's finally get into this. So like I said, I will be wrapping up June and July. I'm gonna split these up into months. I'm not gonna like combine all my reads together. So starting with June, I read a total of 9 books, and I have a few statistics that I want to go over. Over those 9 books, I read a total of 2,581 pages. And my overall rating, or my average rating for the month, was 3.67. Usually I go in order from my lowest rated to my highest rated, but because I have so many to talk about in this video, I think I'm just going to go in the order that I read them in. Starting with the first book that I finished in June, that was Some Girls Bite by Chloe Neal. This is the first book in the Chicagoland vampire series, and I actually read this one as part of a group read. It was set up by Lauren from the novel Lush, and this one was actually a reread for me, and this time around I decided to give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This one follows this girl named Merritt, and she ends up being turned into a vampire to save her life, even though she didn't give consent to be turned into a vampire, and it kind of follows her journey through there. This is an adult urban fantasy series. Like I said, I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was Hot Daddy by Lila Monroe, I believe. It will be, you know, on the picture for the cover. I picked this one up because I received an e-arc for the 3rd book in the series, and I had previously read the 1st book in this companion series by this author, and I just decided to pick this one up because I was curious as to how that second story went. Honestly, I don't really remember too many details about my feelings. I kind of like trying to think about it. I kind of remember what was going on, but I don't really remember too much about it. But according to my notes here, I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars as well. Moving on, I read Wild Card, which is also by that same author. This was the 3rd book in the series, which, like I said, this is the one that I received the e-arc for. And I have reviews up for the 1st and the 3rd book. I don't think I did one for the 2nd book, but you could definitely check out my review for the 3rd one. And I also gave that one a 3.5 out of 5 stars as well. The next book I picked up was Food Wars Volume 24 by My Uterus Hakuna. I can't really get into details about this one just because it is so far into the series. Just know that it was almost kind of a setup, but things were definitely happening in this one. But I felt like this one was more of a setup for the next big story, or like is reaching that climax point. This was like the volume before reaching that ultimate climax point, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished in June was Lifelike by J. Kristoff. This is a YA sci-fi novel, and this is the first J. Kristoff standalone that I had, or not standalone, but you know, him writing alone that I have ever read. And I have tried to describe this book a couple of times now, and it's just not coming through the way I would like it. So I would definitely suggest you guys just go and look up the synopsis on this one, because it will give you a way better idea of what's going on with the story. But honestly, not really, because even though I have read it, I didn't really understand what was going on until I actually got in and started reading it. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. There was a lot of really interesting things going on, but I felt like there were definitely some slow moments and some things that I felt like weren't necessary to the story. But yeah, I ended up having a lot of questions by the time I finished reading this one. So I'm looking forward to continuing on with this series trilogy. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I'm looking forward to continuing on with this one. And I'm not sure if I said, but I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next book that I finished was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. This book follows 30-year-old Stella, and she has Asperger's, and because of her Asperger's, she doesn't like physical contact, but she is interested in romance. So she ends up hiring this escort to kind of help her develop skills in the romance department. And things kind of take off from there. I thought this was really cute while also being really sexy, and I really enjoyed this. I thought this was really well done. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars because it wasn't perfect for me, but I did really enjoy this, and I am looking forward to reading more from this author. I know her next book, which I believe is called The Bride Test, also follows a character that has Asperger's, and if I'm not mistaken, that character actually appeared in this one. And he was like a relative of the main male character. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that one plays out and just checking out more from this author as well. The next book that I read was Horimiya Volume 1 by Hiro. This is obviously a manga, and this one is, I believe this is a shoujo manga. This one follows this teenage girl who is really popular in high school. She has a certain image in school, but at home she's like really homey and like plain, and she does all the housework and takes care of her younger brother. So, you know, when she's not at school, she just has, it's like she has a separate life between her school life and her home life, and she doesn't really let them intersect at all. And then there's this guy in her class who is really nerdy, or, you know, you could see how his appearance on this cover, but outside of school he has a bunch of piercings, and he's just very different from his in-school personality or how people see him in school, just like she is, or they're like flip-flop, you know, from their school and personal lives. So they end up running into each other outside of school, and they end up developing a friendship because of that, and I'm thinking it might develop into a romance at some point. But in this first volume, it didn't get that far. I thought this was cute, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with this series at some point. Not exactly sure, because I'm kind of trying to limit my buying just because I have more responsibilities bill-wise. But I'm definitely looking forward to continuing this one when I get a chance to. Not sure if I said, but I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. The second to last book that I finished in June was Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh. This book follows 16-year-old Odessa, and she is a necromancer. And Odessa's job is to continuously bring back the noble family so they can remain in power. And it has been, I can't remember exactly how many years, it has been a while since this noble family has been in control, and they don't believe in change, and it's like everything is just stagnant in this world. And Odessa and the other necromancers that are living in this certain area are responsible for bringing the noble family members back to life. Or it's weird because they're dead, but they kill them and bring them back constantly, and they are also there to make sure that these people, or, you know, the people that they're bringing back don't turn into shades. And shades are basically zombie-like versions of these reborn or living dead type people. But things start to change when there is a possibility that someone is creating shades on purpose and controlling them, and things basically take off from there. I enjoyed this, and this is another one that I enjoyed. I feel like I had a pretty good reading month in June. There were some things that I wasn't necessarily happy with, or I felt like could have been done differently, but overall I really enjoyed this one, and I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I finished in June was People Like Us by Dana Malay. This book follows this character named Kay Donovan, and she is with her friends. I believe it is Halloween night, and they just came from a costume party at their school. It takes place at a boarding school, and they end up finding this girl dead in the lake or something like that is on their school property. And then later on she ends up getting an email from this dead girl, and this girl is basically wanting her to go around, or the email is basically saying that she needs to go around and kind of get revenge on all of these different people in order to keep a secret that she has. And she's trying to figure out who might have killed this girl, because things are kind of pointing towards her, and it's just a lot going on. And I just have to say that I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I've been saying with all my other 4-star reads, it wasn't perfect. There were some things that I felt like weren't done to my satisfaction, and some things I found pretty predictable. I know I saw some people saying that they didn't guess who it was until like almost the end of the book. But honestly, like when a certain character appeared, I was just like, is it this person? And I didn't guess why it was done, but I kind of guessed who it was. But I still really enjoyed this one, and like I said, I'm glad I picked it up. Those were the 9 books that I finished in June, and now I'm gonna move into the books that I read in July. In July, I read a total of 11 books. Over those 11 books, I read 3,761 pages. My average rating for the month was a 3.36 stars, which I'm sure is actually lower than June. So yeah, let's just get into it. The first book that I finished in July was Intercepted by Alexa Martin, and I received an e-arc for this one from Penguin's First Read program. So I will be writing a review for this one. I haven't gotten it done because I just got really behind on pretty much everything that had to do with books besides actually reading. So this book follows a character named Marley, and she's actually a longtime girlfriend of an NFL player. And not far into the book, she actually finds out that this boyfriend that she has been with and has been supporting for, I think, like 10 years or so, has actually been cheating on her. So she decides to leave him and go back home. And although she's like been kind of using him for support for so long, she decides to go back and kind of start from scratch and make a living for herself, you know, based off of her own needs. And in this process, she ends up reconnecting with someone that she had met previously, but it never really went anywhere, and things kind of take off from there. I was pretty mixed about this book. I really enjoyed the story, but there were little things that kind of irritated me about it. Like this main character, I believe she was in her 20s, I think maybe her like mid to late 20s, and she kept using hashtags, and that's just something, I guess maybe that's just a me thing, because some of them were funny, but then there were times where I just felt like they were excessive, and they just kept going on, and that was one of my biggest pet peeves. And I was just like, why is she constantly using hashtags? And it wasn't like she was talking to someone or she was texting someone with these hashtags. It was just like, you know how the characters have a inner monologue going on, or they're thinking about something, and in her head, like in her thought process, she'd be like hashtag blah 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 blah, and I was just like, okay, I'm done. I'm over with this. And yeah, like I said, that was one of my biggest pet peeves. Besides that, I can say that the author did a really good job of portraying certain things, because I found myself really upset with certain characters, or like it just really in the emotional moment that was supposed to be happening. I was there with the characters, and I can say that that was really well done. Overall, I gave this one a 3.54 stars. I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna do for a final rating yet. I put 3.5 stars, but I initially gave it 4, so I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do yet. The next book that I finished in July was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This was a buddy read that I did. I read this one actually for Tome Topple, and I read this with 3 other ladies, I believe, or maybe it was 4 other ladies in total. I'm sure everyone has at least heard of this book by now, and there was a lot of hype surrounding this book, and I think that's why I put it off for so long. And I will say that I think the hype might have taken away some of my enjoyment of this. Don't get me wrong, I still really enjoyed this, but I kind of wish that I had read it as soon as it came out, even though then it was still a bunch of hype surrounding it. But I just felt like it didn't completely blow me away like I thought it would. And that's kind of sad, but besides that, I still really enjoyed the story, and I fell in love with it, and I can't wait to see where the author takes the story from here. I love it, and I'm glad that she is getting so much success with this book. And yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished in July was Dilf Diaries, Oh Baby by Stephanie St. Clair. This one follows this character, or it follows these 2 main characters, and one is a nurse and one is a firefighter. And the guy who's a firefighter, he is known around by everyone in this town. Everyone thinks he's really attractive, and it's like people do a bunch of obnoxious stuff just to see him or get his attention. Anyway, the 2 main characters, they live next door to each other, and one day there is a baby left outside the guy's house, and you know, there's a note saying that it's his baby, and yeah, he has to kind of deal with that. And because of those circumstances, he gets the woman, I cannot remember their names for the life of me right now, but he gets the lady who is his next door neighbor to kind of help him out. He's like, well, you're a nurse and you're a woman, so you should know how to do this, right? And yeah, she kind of tells him off about that, but she still does help him out for the baby's sake. As you can expect with a romance novel, feelings end up getting developed between the 2 of them, and things kind of go from there. So I'm just gonna start by saying I gave this one 2 stars. I didn't think it was terrible, but I did not think this was the best book in the world. This is another one that I still need to write a review for. I think I've been putting this one off just because I felt really bad about giving this a 2 stars, and I had like signed up for the author's newsletter with the program that I had got an e-arc for this one for. So I just felt bad, and I was just like, I don't want to be like, I really didn't like this book. But I had several issues with this. One of my main issues is that I'm not the biggest fan of 3rd person POV in general, but this one, especially in romance novels, but this one was told so weird because it was almost like a 3rd person omniscient type of thing, but there was no structure. We will be like talking, you know, it would be going over one of the characters, and then maybe the next line or the next paragraph we will be completely somewhere else or with the other character, and it's just like, I felt like it didn't flow well. It was just, it almost seemed like a stream of consciousness, like just saying that someone had a certain amount of time to get a story out, and they kind of wrote the basics of the story but didn't go back and like fill anything in. And that's how this story felt to me. And I just, like, I thought it was a good story concept. I just thought it wasn't written well, and I hate when that happens. It sucks, but that's just how it was. I gave it 2 stars, like I said, because the story wasn't terrible. Thought it was a decent storyline, but the actual writing and the structure of the actual story just was not good. The next book that I picked up was The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. This is another romance novel. This was another one that I enjoyed. I didn't think this one was perfect either, so if you can guess from my wording, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. This is a really slow burn romance. Like, nothing really happens until almost the end of the story. I feel bad because I'm kind of like iffy on the details, but I just know that it wasn't spectacular. I know a lot of people were saying this is one of the most amazing books, especially for a slow burn romance. And while I thought it was good, I didn't think it was amazing or like the best thing I've ever read. So it got a 4 stars. Moving on, I've read 3 more books in the Chicagoland vampire series, and I'm kind of just gonna like mush all these together because honestly, even though I just read these or listened to them, because I actually got them or listened to all 3 on audiobooks, I could probably pick out the details, but I feel like this video is probably already pretty long. So I read Friday Night Bites, which is the 2nd book in the series, then Twice Bitten, and Hard Bitten, all by Chloe Neal. Friday Night Bites, which is book 2, I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars, which I lowered my rating after reading this for the first time. So first time I gave it 4, I believe, and then I lowered it to a 3.5. Twice Bitten, which is book number 3 in the series, I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And then Hard Bitten, which is book 4, I also gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Moving on, the next book I picked up was Skinwalker by Faith Hunter. This is the first book in the Jane Yellowrock series, I believe. This was one of the first books for the Wicked Spirits book group, which was started and is hosted by Lauren from the novel Lush. Picked this one up, thought it was going to be really good. I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars. I was intrigued by the story. However, I think the execution, like I said with the other book that I gave 2 stars to, was just not well done at all. There was something about the writing, and then it was something about this that I just could not connect with, and it took me so long to get into this. I got to a point where I was just like, I just want to get through it. I want to know what happens. So I ended up getting the audiobook from Audible. I have returned it by now because I was just like, I just did not like the story enough to keep that, especially because I paid my own money because I didn't have a credit at the time. So I've returned it, but I picked up the audiobook because I was like, I can't get through this. I want to finish it. So yeah, I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was Drink Deep by Chloe Neal, and this is the 5th book, I believe, in the Chicagoland vampire series. There was a lot of craziness going on in this one, and there were some things I can't really talk about it because it's going to be spoilery, but I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I felt like I don't want to say, I think the series is good. Is going back and forth with me. I feel like every other book I'm giving it like a 4 stars, and I'm curious to see how the rest of the series is gonna go. I'm glad that the main character is finally over that, because I think for the first 2.5 books she kept complaining about being turned without her consent, and I think there might have even been a mention. It's like every introduction of the series she has to bring it up again, just in case you don't remember from the previous books. But I feel like at this part of the series she's at a point where that is not as important to like keep pointing it out, like, you did this and I didn't tell you, I didn't give you permission to, you know, it wasn't happening at this part of the series anymore. So yeah, I'm curious to see where the rest of the series is gonna go. I think I just said that, but some things happen, and it was kind of left open ended. There was a lot going on. There was a bunch of different directions, and I don't know how I feel. I don't know, but I'm ready to pick up the next book in the series to see what happens next. And the last 2 books that I finished in July, which were the first 2 books that I finished during the Booktubeathon, which if you have seen that vlog, then you would have already seen these 2, because I did talk about a little about both of them. But that is SP Baby Volume 1 and SP Baby Volume 2 by Maki and Joji. Like I mentioned in that video, if you have already seen it, these 2 volumes consist of the entire series. I gave both of these a 3 out of 5 stars. I thought they were cute and interesting. However, there wasn't a whole lot going on to these. The series follows this girl named Tamaki, and she's actually taking care of her 15-year-old brother. However, she has only been able to work part-time jobs, and she is on her way to a job interview for like a full-time office position, and she ends up encountering this guy who's running from someone, and she thinks he's being stalked or something, so she decides to help him out. Turns out that it's actually his bodyguard, and one thing leads to another, and he gets her to agree to become his bodyguard. So that's pretty much where the story takes off. This is one of those series that is almost like each chapter is its own story. Obviously they're all connected, but it's not a continuous storyline like Food Wars is. Each chapter is based off of the previous chapter's events, and this one is not. It's just like this event happened, and then there was a space of time, and then the next event happens. So I think that's why I didn't necessarily enjoy these as much. So those are all the books that I read in June and July. I think over the 2 months it was a total of 20 books. I'm sorry that I really didn't get into much details when it came to these books. However, like I said, trying to do a 2-month wrap up, this is the first time I've ever done it, I'm pretty sure. And then yeah, it's a lot. And I didn't want to have a 30-minute video, so I just kind of went over the books I read and my rating. But that's all I have for you guys for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you like my videos, subscribe. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys again in the next one. Bye.